Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Sher, and once again, it's time to square off. And we were talking just before the show. So let's introduce the panel, and then we'll let it go. How about that? Let's meet our panel. We have the fabulous Jayne Miller. We have Jovani Patterson, Bob Scherr, and Billy Murphy. And before we started to talk on the air, somebody out there said these are troubling times. And I said, and Bob is nodding, he brought it up. So let's just start in there and talk about what there is to be very, very elated about. Be happy. Bob, Scherr.
First of all, our sense of security is gone. There's nothing to hold on to. People have worked their entire lives to accumulate a savings so that they can support themselves. Donald Trump comes into office, and in a few short months, he, for absolutely no understandable reason, has tanked and screwed up the economy. He has this tariff war that nobody understands. The stock market is crashing every day. Every time Trump goes out and says something, the market goes down. Your savings are down. Your 401ks are down. We've lost our allies based on his vindictiveness against leaders of our country. He doesn't get along with the leaders of the people we're friendly with, only with the enemies. None of it makes sense. There's no sense of security now. And you got another 3.5 years of this guy. It's unbelievable.
How about 8.5? You never know. Jovani, what do you think? Let's just pick your brain.
Man, y'all all doom and gloom, man. You got a lot to be happy about. I mean, first off, we woke up this morning. So, I understand people want to say doom and gloom, but we've been through things like this before. I mean, we've been through troubling times before. We've been through hard times before. And, if we constantly looking for outside motivation, then we'll never find it. Like true happiness lies within. You have a decision to make every day to be happy. Now, regarding what Trump is doing, I akin it to a clean house or spring cleaning. When you're actually going through and digging in and figuring out, trying to clean your house, it gets messy at first. There are things that you're going to figure out that, hey, I have more than this of what I need. I need to throw some things away. But the house gets dirtier as you're trying to clean. And we are in a tough period time right now for that cleaning to happen. But on the other side of it, things are going to be much better for people that like Trump and people that don't like Trump.
Jayne, what do you think? How happy are you today?
I agree with Bob about the sense of security is, look, I've retired from my full-time work. You work your entire life, you build your savings, you build retirement savings, you're a Social Security beneficiary. All of those things have been thrown into question and a lot of concern raised about them. And I mean, if you look at what economists are saying, they don't see Trump's policies about tariffs, et cetera, yielding the positive results that he is trying to promise. I think the other thing is that, no, we haven't been here before in our lifetimes. We haven't had a president that just ignores court orders. We haven't had a president that wants to run for a third term. These are not those kinds of times. These are very different times, and it raises a lot of concern for the future of the way our country was built, which was built as a democracy.
Billy,
I want to comment on something.
Hold it. Bob, then Jovani.
I want to comment on something Jovani said. He said, we've been here before. We have not been here before. Jayne, I agree with you. We had a financial crisis in 2008, but that wasn't the fault of anybody. It's just the world circumstances. What we're going through now is a result of Trump's actions that nobody understands. This is self-inflicted, what we're going through. This isn't a result of things we have no control over. Now, Trump doesn't know what he's doing. He's doing this on the fly. Initially, he put tariffs. He announced tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and it said because of the fentanyl that was coming into the country. Remember, that was his justification for the first word of the word tariff out of his mouth. We got to stop the fentanyl. Then all of a sudden, when we find out there isn't any fentanyl coming in from Canada, he changes the narrative in the middle of the tariffs. Everything he does is on the fly, and that's what's scary. If this were part of a plan that we all understood what he was attempting to do, it would be easier to handle. But every day there is a new narrative and a new policy, and you know the guy is doing it on the fly. That's what's scary.
We will get back to you in a moment, Jovani. We want to let Billy Murphy speak. Bill.
Well, one of the things that I find impossible to understand is how someone as intelligent as one of the panelists here can respect, admire, be patient with, understand, and not be turned off totally by the fact that he's a serial liar, that he is making things up as he goes along, that he is losing all of the favorability rating that he came in with because his policies don't make sense to the American people in greater and greater numbers. This man's a disaster, and he's evil. That's the other thing. How can you admire, respect, or tolerate a president who is evil, who is mean-spirited, vindictive, petty about it, and destroying people's lives at the toss of a phrase, doing outrageous things? And no, this has not happened before, even before our lifetime. We've never seen a president act like this. And how can you tolerate the specter of people who are United States citizens being deported without due process or any process at all, who have not been convicted of any crimes, who are in the larger and larger numbers? And how can you tolerate a man who cozies up to the dictator he's made a deal with in one of the worst prisons ever in the world that anybody's ever seen, and just laughs at the specter of all of it, while the rest of us cry, while the rest of us have relatives and friends and who can be taken off the streets at his whim? So you can be optimistic if you want to be a young man, but you're not in good company about that today. And by the way, his poll numbers are cratering, and the resistance is growing. And one of the things we don't talk about that the American people need to know is how strong the resistance is becoming. And I was once a pessimist about being able to stop this man, but I'm becoming more and more optimistic because he's really dumb. He's clever, but he's really dumb.
All right,
and
hold on.
You can see the stupidity of what he's doing day by day, minute by minute, hour by hour. At least three of us can see it.
Jovani, your turn.
So first, we're not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic. So I do want to go ahead and correct that on the record. Additionally, Donald Trump has been saying the same thing since the 80s. The man is very consistent. So anybody that took the time, instead of looking at him on rap videos and in movies and actually reading the words that he wrote, he's been saying the same things over and over again. Now, when it comes to these tariffs, we've made America into this kind of global international free trade mechanism, but it has been at the expense of American jobs, American families, American in manufacturing, things like that being shipped overseas. And this also plays into our national security. When we have all our computer chips and everything coming from other countries in war times, when we may have to go to war with China or go to war with Russia or go with war with anybody, if we have all of these imports coming from everywhere else, and if for our own national security, depending on the imports from those other countries, we're putting ourselves at a disadvantage. So these things need to be cleaned up. They're not easy to fix. But they do take a moment to fix. And what I'm saying to you guys right now, there is room for hope. I haven't checked the polls, but from my last check the polling, people are liking what's going on. The
Really?
numbers are showing that people are supporting what's going on because this is what the Americans voted for.
This is
This is
not
the
correct.
problem.
The recent polling shows he's underwater in every category.
This is the problem. I voted for the guy. I'm a Republican. I voted for him twice. What I'm seeing now is unbelievable. It's horrible. He has certain ideas that are good, Okay. For example, we want to cut out waste and fraud. Everybody wants to do that. Great idea. We want to prevent a nuclear weapon from being developed in Iran. Everybody agrees with that. I mean, in other words, he has ideas. Illegal immigrants, we don't want illegal immigrants in our country. Everybody agrees with that. It's the way he puts these policies in effect. He burns what's the phrase? He throws the baby out with the bathwater. It's the chaotic way he takes a good idea and screws it up. That's the problem. And that's where we are now. And you're a young man, Jovani. You've got plenty of time if you've lost money as a result of these policies. Older people don't have the time to play the game that Trump is playing with their 401ks.
Have you moved your stuff to annuities?
Come on, man.
What?
There-
Wait.
I'll give you a call and you can handle what I got left.
Move your
all right?
money?
There's financial
come on.
vehicles. There's so with investments, because I work in I have experience in personal finance as well. When you're at certain points in your life, you move your money because you don't want to take on the risk, right? Because stocks are risky by nature. And at a certain age, you start to transition your money into more safe accounts. That is what you do to protect your assets for the longevity. You don't keep your money in a certain place in the growth mechanism when you're trying to take it out in retirement.
I am not going to participate in this conversation.
That's just that's finance education 101.
This is a stupid conversation.
That's
You're
correct.
obviously well informed.
Not going to participate in this conversation.
Young man, you're obviously well informed.
We'll do that. We'll take a break. We'll hear from the voice of Square Off, Howard Mallison, and then we'll be right back. Howard.
Thank you, Richard. Dr. Kelly Gagan is a well-respected board-certified podiatrist and heel specialist. Foot problems can happen at any age. And Dr. Gagan knows that the appearance of your feet matter just as much as correcting any problem you may be experiencing. If you have an unsightly toenail that embarrasses you to wear sandals or open-toed shoes, you may be a candidate for laser treatments that solve this issue. They're a safe, painless way to go right to the cause. And they do work better than a lot of these over-the-counter treatments. So give Dr. Gagan a call at 410-753-4422 and set up an appointment. Baltimore is a great diner town, and the Double T Diners are always voted #1 in reader polls. TT stands for totally terrific. For breakfast, lunch, or dinner, you can't beat the enormous menu selections that will bring you back again and again. There's Double T's in Route 40 West, Perry Hall, White Marsh, Bel Air, Laurel, Annapolis, Pasadena, and the EC Diner in Ellicott City. Plus, try By the Docks in Middle River for their Monday night lobster specials. This is all part of the Double T family. And tell them you heard about it on Square Off.
Please do.
Back to you, Rich.
Jayne and the rest of those who did not want to continue with that, we're now moving on. We want to take a look at Brandon Scott, some of the things he had to say positive about Baltimore, and some of the things other people had to say that were negative about Baltimore. But his State of the City address brought a lot of cheers from some in the audience gathered at the France Merrick Performance Arts Center last Monday evening. Mayor Scott calls for building the Baltimore way. He calls Baltimore the DEI capital of the United States. He says, call us whatever you like, In the Baltimore Sun, the mayor says, quote, "We have to build the Baltimore way by building into our strengths, our grit, and our charm, and not shying away from our challenges, but seeing them as opportunities to be better." Billy, how do you feel about these comments?
Well, putting aside the comments, because comments like that generally don't move the needle. Brandon Scott has started to mature very, very rapidly. And there are things that he is doing that are worth applauding. There's some holes in his game, and we got to help him fill the holes. For example, the police department is under his complete control, but he hasn't exerted any control over it yet. And he was one of the experts in what the state of the department was when he was in the council. And that was one of his hallmark policy discussions as he was running for mayor the first time. So he's got to wrap his arms around controlling the police department and getting rid of the bad cops many of whom have been identified and not yet fired. When we finish that, we'll have a better police department. We'll have police who have character and who support each other and who keep each other in line. And we have to applaud him also for helping bring down the homicide rate. It used to be that you could poo-poo that by just looking at the national numbers. And if the national numbers were going down, you don't give the mayor any credit. But that's no longer the case. Baltimore is in a unique position of having a dramatic downturn in both shootings and killings. And that's to be applauded.
In fairness, here's a letter to the Baltimore Sun from former mayoral candidate David Tufaro, who writes, quote, "Mayor Scott seeks safe, easy projects and then gets airtime to get credit for these initiatives. But he is silent on the state of the schools and the education program in Baltimore, as well as high taxes and rampant juvenile crime. I hope Mayor Scott realizes that he needs to take quick action, very quick action, before too many people are lost to other states." Does that comment make sense to any of you? What's that nod?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, the property taxes are high. The education, you're not, put it like this, you're not coming here to raise a family or to really start a career. But I'll say this, to add on to what Mr. Tafaro was saying, it's I think Brandon Scott has been taking credit for work that he didn't actually perform. Because I believe the reduction in homicides and things like that started when Ivan Bates was elected. When we had a top prosecutor that said we're actually going to prosecute crime, that's when seen a lot of the drops happen, and you can see how quickly it happens. And just so happened that Brandon Scott was mayor at the time, and he got to take a lot of the credit for that. So I wouldn't put all of the the accolades and celebration on Brandon Scott for the homicide drops. And I applaud that this is what's happened and this is stay in the city. I'm happy to see it. But I wouldn't say that that's solely for him to take credit for. But I will say the beginning of his speech, he definitely sound inspiring. I agreed with a lot of what he said. Like when it comes to Baltimore, you have to build the Baltimore way. And that's with grit and things like that. But we have to be serious about it. Jobs aren't coming to Baltimore because of our education system. There's a very small talent pool for jobs to come here. I sued the Baltimore City public school system, and we see they're passing kids with 30, 60, 90 days missing from school. And they're saying that the standard for chronic absenteeism is 18 days. And so you see this happening over and over, and you're really not addressing it. So there is still a lot of concern for people, not just leaving the city, but leaving the state as well.
Jayne, go ahead.
The problem with Baltimore City is
that Jayne?
very similar to the problems of other big cities. All right. Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C. I mean, you can name a bunch of them. They all have the same problems. You can't blame all of that on the mayor. The one statistic, and Billy had mentioned it, the one statistic that I am impressed with is not only are homicides coming down, but non-fatal shootings are coming down. And that's the key. In the first couple of years of Brandon Scott, homicides were coming down, but non-fatal shootings were going up. All that tells me is that we've got a lot of better doctors than we used to have, and a lot of these people shot don't die, okay? So I wasn't that impressed. I'm more impressed now because non-fatal shootings are coming down in addition to the homicides.
The first,
I give him credit, and I agree, he's matured.
he has matured, and the same 4-year period, the first few months of 2025 have shown the fewest murders in Baltimore in 50 years. And one more statistic, back in 2020, the Baltimore Police Department had a homicide clearance rate of 42%. It is now 68%. Jayne, that's pretty impressive.
It is. And look, there are lots of different moving parts to a public safety strategy and a public safety outcome. A lot of people want to take credit for this, that, or the other thing. Brandon Scott started in the summer of 2021 with really pushing investment in community violence intervention. This gets us to the group violence reduction strategy, GVRS, which has been widely acclaimed to have shown results throughout the city. It started in the Western District, now it's moved to other parts of the city. But there are many, many, many people and moving parts to the reduction in violence. There has been an increase in the hospital-based response. There's been an increase in some of the services that are provided to people who show up in hospital emergency rooms with gunshot wounds. We still have a relatively high rate of violence, however, and while it is absolutely, it should get a lot of credit to everybody involved over the last couple of years in reducing the rate of violence, we still have a long way to go. And much of that is going to involve, the rates of violence occur at the greatest level in the same neighborhoods where they have occurred for decades. And these are the neighborhoods that have suffered the greatest disinvestment, the greatest vacancy, all of those conditions that, kind of make way for violence to occur. And so other things will have to continue to happen to really get to a place where everybody can say, wow, we really did this. I do think that the reductions so far in gun violence are absolutely are worth giving everybody a lot of credit for, but we still have a long way to go to get to a point where we don't talk about it anymore. And Bob's right. I mean, all these cities have the same conditions and same situations, and in some cases what's interesting to me is that this has occurred with a smaller police force in terms of the number of patrol officers on the street. I mean, how many times have you heard, oh, we have short officers, et cetera? This has all occurred with a smaller police force. And that tells me that what's going on in the police department is a smarter police force and a smarter strategy in terms of really trying to go after particularly, trafficking of guns and gun violence.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Here again, the voice of Square Off. Very good, Jayne. Very good. Very good, Jovani. And Howard, speak up.
Thank you, Richard. The law firm of Barry Glazer specializes in personal injury, medical malpractice, and nursing home neglect. Barry's creative TV commercials make him very recognizable. Really, the reason is because Barry tells it like it is. Barry and his team have an in-house doctor. They have an in-house nurse on staff. In fact, Barry might be the call you make before you ever call the insurance company. Barry gets you top dollar from the insurance company. He's that good. So give the law firm of Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568 and let him know you heard about him on Square Off. And with so many cars on the road and distracted drivers everywhere, like this morning, car cut me off on the Beltway. Auto accidents will happen.
What
and
is his license number, Howard?
I want to give it, but not over the air.
All right. Have him call. Yeah. Okay. Go
But
ahead.
it was actually you, Richard. So I didn't want to, I didn't want to implicate you. Auto accidents will happen, and if you've experienced an accident, the insurance companies can't tell you where to take your car. That's why more and more drivers are trusting their auto repairs and maintenance to leading edge auto body and mechanical repair. They work on all makes and models and offer free pickup and delivery anywhere in the Baltimore area. Give them a call at 410-443-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in Mount Washington. They make your car look and run like new again. Leading edge auto repair. Rich, back to you.
They're great. Jeff Siegel runs a tight ship, and it's a very nice place to take your car. Got a great staff. Let's talk about the solemn Saturday as the world bids farewell to Pope Francis, the pontiff, who ministered with humble style, but many traditionalists. He died Monday, of course, at the age of 88. Are any of you Catholics? Oh, that's good. Are any of you? Well, and anyway, quoting from the Baltimore Sun, Archbishop Lori received a text with the sad news that Pope Francis had died. He said, quote, he felt as though he had just lost a second father. It meant a very busy day for the spiritual head of the Baltimore's 486,000 Catholics. The Baltimore Sun reports Archbishop Lori and his followers found themselves waylaid by grief. Did any of you guys, girls, have the pleasure of knowing the Archbishop? Hello?
No, I can't say I've had the pleasure.
No?
No, no.
All right. Well, we're going to have leaders from worldwide, all over, from all sides of the political spectrum, from U.S. President and Mrs. Donald Trump to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The world will be watching over this weekend. Does anyone have anything to say about the Pope and what he does?
He saw through Trump. That was in his favor. He was very critical of the president. He saw that he was an indecent man. That's in his favor. He saw that he was a petty man who was grievance oriented and who was anxious to get back at people for sins real or imagined to sate his own insecurities. And so in that manner, to that extent, I was a fan of the Pope.
There was some controversy about him in that he basically tended to, in support of immigrants, he basically supported illegal immigration, which a lot of people were opposed to. And in fact, on the last day of his life, he met with the Vice President of the United States, which I find amazing, and he didn't want to meet with him. He gave him a few minutes, but that's the guy that was the last public figure that the Pope saw, J.D. Vance, which is kind of
I see you resisting
amazing.
the temptation to associate the death with his last visit, and that's a good thing. I mean, we don't want to go there.
Pope Francis's Easter message was to really implore the leadership around the world to be more supportive of the poor and migrants. He was a very outspoken leader on that front, and it'll be very interesting to see with this whole process that they undergo, for the new pope. I mean, who it will be.
Jovani, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd say may the Pope rest in peace. But I do find one, I find the always kind of bringing up Trump kind of interesting. But when it comes to Christianity, because I am a Christian, and Catholic is a form of Christianity, but it seems like the secular world has this metric on what Christianity is, and according to the secular world, uh, the Pope was a decent man, and like Mr. Murphy was saying, oh, he also didn't like my enemy, so I like him, and that kind of just gets real confusing and mixed up. When you look at the life of Jesus, Jesus was no pushover. Jesus was not one that was always just letting everybody do
You
everything. I mean,
comparing Trump to Jesus?
Are you interrupting me?
Yeah, I did.
Bill, don't. Billy, don't. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, I did. Are you comparing Trump to Jesus?
So Jesus said, "You'll do works greater than I," it's not the comparison to Jesus, but it is the attitude that I think Christians need to embody. It's not one of hate or anything like that, but it is one for standing up for what's right, what's just, and doing so in the best way possible. Now, like I said, when it comes to Christianity, Christianity is being demonized, particularly in America, you know, especially when Christians speak out for being either masculine, being pro-family, being pro-life,
We
those
gotta
type of
wrap
things,
this.
and it's being rallied against. So when you say someone is decent and he's an example of what Christianity is, when that guy's a pushover, that's the secular world giving a metric on what Christianity should look like, and I think that view should be rejected.
Well,
All right.
Christianity can be summarized by two principles: love thy God with all thy heart, all thy mind, and all thy soul, and place no other gods before me. That's principle number one. Second is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And young man, you don't see Christianity in the White House. You don't see anything close to it. You see the opposite of Christianity
I
in the
mean, I
White House.
see hate right here on this call. I mean, it'd
Oh,
be, are you a
really?
Christian?
Who
Are
hates
you a
who?
Christian?
Who hates who? Who hates who?
Are you a Christian?
Who hates who? No, you said
Are
that
you
you heard
are
hate
you
on this call.
are
All
you
right,
a
There's
Christian?
no
gentlemen,
hate here.
ladies,
There's revulsion.
Jane, you get
And
the final word.
revulsion
Hold
is
it,
a
Billy.
reaction to people who are not Christian, who are not decent, who are the very opposite of what Christianity
All right.
says and ought to relate into something that they do. And
So
so
wasn't
I
Jesus a
don't
friend to the
understand
sinner?
how you can
Wasn't
espouse
Jesus
Christian values
wasn't Jesus a friend to the sinner?
and like a president who is the very opposite of a Christian.
All right.
Was
Jane,
Jesus not a friend to the sinner?
hold on,
Come
guys.
on, man. If
Hold
you
it.
want to quote scripture, know what you're talking about.
Jane, do you want to say anything before we end?
I have nothing to say in terms of this conversation. I have nothing to say in terms of this conversation. Obviously, Pope
Okay.
Francis meant a lot to very many people around the world and was a very outspoken advocate for the poor, the underprivileged, the disenfranchised, and migrants. That he made his mark,
All right. We have
being
to
a
wrap.
very, very strong advocate.
Jane, thank you. Billy, thank you. Jovani, thank you. Bob Scherr, good to see you. And all of you, ladies and gentlemen, sorry about the little battle at the end.